Namaste everyone. Welcome to Blended Learning Platform. Myself Dr. Ammanita, working as an Assistant Professor in Horticulture, Department of SPMA, College of Horticulture, Paratipuram, from Dr. YSR Horticultural University. Today I am going to present a lecture on production technology and processing of coconut. Botanically, coconut is of Cocos nucifera, belongs to the family Palmae or Araceae, originated in Indo-Malayan region, present in Southeast Asia. Fruit is botanically modification of berry, that is drupe, which is of one-seeded in nature, having chromosome number of 32. Cocos nucifera, it originated from two different words. One is Spanish word and the second one is the Latin word. Spanish word cocos means having 3 dots on coconut resembling the monkey face, and nucifera, which means nut-bearing capacity. Coconut is a versatile tree which is cultivated among more than 93 countries in the world, which is of most beautiful and useful trees, and it is also very important among all the cultivated palms. Coconut is known as Kalpavriksha, tree of life, tree of abundance, king of palms, nature supermarket. Why? Because all the parts which are present in coconut, which are helpful to the humankind, they are supplying all the three basic amenities of the humankind, and it is also connected with the domestic and economic life of the human. Coconut is of only monospecific genus, and it is only the economically important species of cocos. Here the picture depicting the coconut distribution among all the tropical countries of the world. Here the red line representing the tropical countries. Coming to the coconut area and production, coconut which is distributed mostly and also cultivated mostly in all the southern states of the India, especially Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. These 4 states representing around 90% of the area in production, and it is also distributed in other northern states having a subtropical climate. Recently, it is also growing in some of the northeastern states like Assam and Tripura, which is becoming popular. Coming to the market share of these states, Karnataka is having the highest market share around 30%, followed by Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh. Here among these 4 states, Andhra Pradesh having the highest productivity. Coming to the top 20 countries which are having the highest production, Indonesia is the leading producer, followed by Philippines and India. Coming to the global coconut products market share, coconut oil is occupying highest percentage, followed by coconut water, coconut milk, and other coconut products. And coconut products which are having high market value, having the share from Asian Pacific countries. And these coconut products also, which are mostly from the young coconut than compared to the mature coconut, these young coconuts contributing more market value comparative to the mature coconuts because of coconut water and other coconut products like coconut meat, coconut jelly, etc. Coming to the India's coconut export trend, gradually the coconut exports increasing and also giving more market value, more economy to the Indian national economy. In 2020 to 23, it is giving a monetary value of around more than 3,000 crores. Coming to the uses, which I already mentioned in the previous slide, that coconut is having different names like Kalpavriksha, Tree of Heaven, Nature Supermarket, because all the coconut products are which are very economically important. Among that, coconut oil having more value in the market. It produces of around 60% of the edible oil, which is comparable to the other oil yielding crops like soya bean, mustard, etc. Among this, it consists of both saturated and unsaturated fatty acids. Among this, lauric acid is the prominent one. Among the in lauric acid, one component that is monolaurin, which is having anti-HIV property. This coconut oil came from the solid endosperm, that is also known as copra, which is known as a copra meat in mature stage. whereas in younger stages, it is known as a white meat. So in younger stages, from this white meat exclusively used in the confectionery and also the food industry. Whereas liquid endosperm, that is also known as coconut water, which is a nourishing drink, which is source of the minerals and vitamins. And it is also prominent for the application in tissue culture because it is contains the cytokinins. The hard endocarp, which is surrounding the this copra, which is very useful in fuel industry because it is useful in preparation of the charcoal because of high calorific value. Fronds, also known as leaves, these are used in the covering of thatched houses. The vines from the fronds used bunched together, useful for the preparation of whisk broom, mostly used in the village areas of the India. The heart of the palm, which is comparable to the other palm crops also, mostly this is known as a cabbage, especially used in a salad preparations as a vegetable. This is the structure of the fruit, which includes the seed, which I mentioned earlier that it is a modification of the berry, and that is drupe. Outer layer is a smooth, which is of exocarp. Depends upon the variety, the color which represents. The middle part is the mesocarp, which is a fibrous in nature. This fiber depends upon the stage of the coconut. If it is a younger stage, the color of the fiber is white in cream or white in color, mostly used in the preparation of mattresses. Whereas it is ripens, the color is changed to the brown. So the length of the fiber is short, mostly used in the preparation of mats, pillows, etc. Whereas endocarp, which is of hard one, stony layer, which is used in the different craft industries because it is a round shape, and it is also having the high calorific value, which I mentioned earlier, mostly used as a charcoal. The inner layer, which is a endosperm, that is present in both solid and liquid form. Okay, solid endosperm is known as a meat, and whereas liquid endosperm is known as a coconut water. So these are the different uses from the coconut. If you observe the classification of uses, they are like water-based, shell-based, inflorescence, and kernel-based. Water-based, which I already mentioned, that coconut water, and from that we can prepare the coconut vinegar, natadi cocoa. Natadi cocoa is like a combination of coconut water, which contains the uh, culture of acetobacter. Whereas shell-based, we can prepare the charcoal, and also from that, we can prepare activated carbon, shell powder, and also different craft items like coconut bowls, spoons, ladles, etc. also can be prepared. Coming to the inflorescence sap, which is a unfermented product, we can extract from the inflorescence of the coconut. That is known as a nira, which is, if it is a fermented, then it is called as a toddy. It is this nira is a very similar taste to the coconut water because of sap from the tree. Coming to the kernel based, so if it is already mentioned that if it is a mature one, we can extract the oil from the copra. If it is a younger stages, we can prepare the white meat, that is mostly as a coconut powder, coconut chips, etc. Coming to the soil and climatic conditions of the coconut, coconut is of heliotropic in nature, that is mostly towards the affected towards the sun because of it is originated in a tropical climate. So the ideal mean temperatures suitable for the cultivation of coconut is around 27 degrees centigrade with a diurnal variation of 5 to 7 degrees centigrade. So well-distributed rainfall of around 1300 to 2300 per annum is preferred. So being a tropical in nature, coconut can grow up to an altitude range of 600 meters above the mean sea level. Coming to the soil conditions, coconut is grown in a varied soil conditions ranging from the laterite, coastal, sandy loam, etc. And it is also very well grown in a saline soils also, which a pH range from 5 to 8. But to make sure that the coconut, where the coconut is growing, the there should be without any rock, any hard substratum present in the root zone of layer, especially within 2 meters from the surface. So World Coconut Day is celebrated on September 2nd. which is organized by the Asian Pacific community. Especially this is celebrated from all the coconut growing farmers present in these Asian Pacific communities. So this year, 2024, the theme of the World Coconut Day is that coconut for circular economy, which builds the partnership, which promotes the maximum value. Coming to the botany of the crop, palm is a very tall in nature, unbranched monocot, which reaches up to the height of 15 to 30 meters. At the base of the palm, which is of caudex in nature, that is swollen of the base known as a bole. Being a monocot, it contains the fibrous root system. Stem which terminates into the radiating crown. This crown contains of leaves. Leaves are known as a fronds. These leaves are pinnately compound. At the base, they contains the swollen petiole. Coming to the root system, being a monocot in nature, it contains the adventitious root system. Mostly they are arising from the bole. This bole specifically present in the tall palms than compared to the dwarf palms. So this adventitious fibrous root system mostly confined to the top 1.5 meters level. So here two types of roots are present. Feeder roots are young roots. Those young roots are which are cream in color. Gradually they changes from cream to brown in color. Whereas feeder roots, the mostly produced from the pericycle and they are of mostly branched in nature. So nematophores are the specialized root structures because here rootlets are not present. So like a taproot system. So here the nematophores are like a modification of the rootlets. Mostly they are helpful in absorption of the oxygen from the soil. Coming to the stem, which I already mentioned that caudex in nature. So that is a swollen, at the base, swollen nature is there. So mostly that is known as a bole present in a tall palms. So here the appearance of the trunk, which mostly seen after the 3 years, around production of 12 to 18 leaves. So being a monocot, there is no presence of cambium in the trunk. Each node which bearing a one leaf scar, after dropping of the leaf, the one spar will be formed on the trunk. So around 12 to 14 leaves produced per palm per year. So the age of the palm can be calculated based on these scars only. So the formula will be given like total number of leaves per year, that is around 12 to 14, and plus 3 years, which is for the trunk, take care of for the trunk formation. Coming to the leaves, so I already mentioned that leaves are borne on the crown region, so they are known as a fronds. So at the base of the leaf, a swollen petiole will be there. So all these are protected by one tissue-like structure. So this leaf primordia, which will be originated around 30 months prior to the emergence of the lamina. So the primordia will be take place and the emergence will be take around the 30 months. So already mentioned that the fibrous sheath which protects the young leaf. So on an average, this lifespan of the leaf is around 2.5 to 3 years. So coming to the inflorescence. So inflorescence is a monoecious in nature, which is covered by a one boat-shaped structure known as a spathe. This is also protected by one fibrous sheath. After the emergence of this spathe, the fibrous sheath will be broken. So yeah, there are many spikelets will be there in each spathe. At the base of each spikelet, female flowers are present. Those are known as buttons. At the top, male flowers are there. All the male and female flowers are there in sessile in nature. So female flowers depends upon the high yielders around each spikelet. They contains around 1 to 2 female flowers. Coming to the fruit growth and development, which I already mentioned that exocarp, mesocarp, endocarp, endosperm, and embryo will be present in single fruit. So depends upon the age, the uses of the fruit will be varied. So around the 4 months, the liquid endosperm, which is in a sweeter, low sugar content, but they are rich in more minerals. When the maturity goes to 5 months age, the meat is in full size and they begins to develop a thin gel-like, and that is means the solid endosperm development starts. Whereas in 7 months stage, the sugar level and oil content also increases in the liquid endosperm, and further the endocarp will be hardened. Initially that is in white in color. Gradually it is changes to the cream to brown color. Whereas in 11 to 12 months stage, the full hardened shell, which is a fully formed meat, and it is also contains the testa. That means around the white meat, the brown color testa will be formed. During the 12 months says completely the kernel dry and weight increases and it reaches the maximum oil content, that is fatty acids will be increased, and the gradually the liquid endosperm gradually dries. So after 12 months, it will be like a full mature nut, and it is also useful for the as a seed purpose also. So here, if you see the percentage nature, percentage of the different products, 35% will be like a husk, and 12% will be shell, and 28% will be like, and 25% will be there like the water. So there are varieties. Tall and dwarf, this is the most acceptable classification in the coconut varieties and commercially important also. So if you see the dwarf, botanically it is of Cocos nucifera variety Nana, whereas tall variety Typica. So based on the name itself, the height of the palm, it differs in between both tall and dwarf. And the bearing also for the dwarf palms, they will be like a early, precocious in nature than compared to the taller palms. Here, the self-pollination will occur in the dwarf because of overlapping of the male and female flowers. Whereas in tall palms, it is of cross-pollinated in nature. So the copra content also, the quality wise, the taller palms having the more oil content and also the more copra content than compared to the dwarfer palms. The color of the exocarp is like more variability seen in the taller palms than compared to the taller ones. So because of the self-pollinated in nature, dwarf palms are mostly homozygous and especially used as a used in hybridization program as like a female parent. And also dwarf palms are mostly useful for the ornamental purpose and also for the tender nut. Examples for the dwarfer palms are Chowgat orange dwarf, Chowgat green dwarf, Chowgat yellow dwarf, etc. From Andhra Pradesh, Ganga Bonda. Whereas for the taller palms, mostly named after the place where they are in larger cultivation, example West Coastal, East Coastal, etc. And other prominent taller varieties like Lakadivi Ordinary, Lakadivi Micro, Commodore, and Andaman Ordinary, etc. So these are the pictorial representation of different varieties. So coming to the hybrid palms, so to achieve the precocity and also the to catch the hybrid vigor from the both tall and the dwarf palms, and also to gain the some important characters like larger nuts, high copra, and high oil content, the hybridization between the tall and dwarf can be carried out. So mostly they can be used as a vice versa also. That means a tall into dwarf or dwarf into tall. So here, if you see the tall into dwarf, tall will be like a female mother palm and dwarf will be a male parent. Whereas dwarf into tall, dwarf will be female and tall will be a male parent. So if you see the among these two types, dwarf and tall hybrids are comparatively performing better. However, the disadvantage is like that they are in late pairing. These are the examples of the tall into dwarf hybrids like Chandralaksha, Lakshaganga. BHC1 means Vepankulam hybrid combination, Godavari Ganga, Kira Ganga, Kira Shankara, Ananta Ganga. Whereas dwarf into tall hybrids are like Chandrashankara. These are the pictorial representations. Here Gautami Ganga, Vasishta Ganga, Godavari Ganga are released from the Dr. YSR Horticultural University from Horticulture Research Station, Ambazipeta. So coming to the propagation, this is a mono-specific genus which I mentioned earlier. Only propagation occurs through the seed. If you want to multiply in a larger way, micropropagation can also be followed. But with the micropropagation, there will be a problem. They are facing a problem in vitro conditions because of high recalcitrant nature and also more production of the polyphenols in the laboratory. So this is the highly commercially followed method is the seed propagation only. So for the production of, for identification and also for the more production of the seed, we have to see the pedigree of the gardens. For that, we have to see better mother palms also we have to select. So here some of the criteria are there for selection of the mother palm. There should be a regular bearing habit and free from pests and diseases. And also the palm should be of middle aged, around 25 to 40 years old, and it should be of more yielder and around 120 nuts per palm per year, and also bearing capacity of around 12 bunches, 12 to 15 bunches per palm per year. And also other criteria taken into consideration like shape of the crown. The crown shape must be of spherical or semi-spherical in nature, and petiole should be strong and stout, and these petioles also short. And coming to the bunch stalks also, there should not be any drooping of the bunch stalk, and also the bunch stalk also should be short and stout and should be supportive to the bunch. So while taken into the selection of mother palms, avoiding these characters like the long, thin, pendulous inflorescence stalks, and also alternate bearing capacity, and also immature nuts are not taken into the consideration, and also immature nut shedding from the mother palm, those type of mother palm should be avoided, and also grown under near water source or manure pits, those type of mother palms also should not be selected. Coming to the seed nut criteria, this vary from the season to season and also region to region. Uh, Mainly select the seed nuts which are fully matured, that is around 11 to 12 months old, and the husked seed also should weigh around not less than 600 grams. So immediately after selection of the seed nut, we have to store the seed like a curing to get the better quality of the seedling. So immediately after harvesting, we have to store the seed under the shade of the tree only for a period of around 60 days. So for the storing, we have to prepare like alternate layers of the nut and the sand. We in between the sand layer should be of 8 centimeters. So while storing, we have to make sure that the stock should be up. So the alternate layers of the sand and nuts should be around 5 layers. So this is the ideal seed nut uh, and storage of the seed nut to maintain the moisture. All the seeds should be covered with the fronds. So coming to the nursery preparation, so before the nursery preparation, make sure that while harvesting the nuts also, there should not be any damage while harvesting of the nuts. Nursery should mention, I mentioned that it should be near the water source, and during the bed preparation, we have to make sure that width of the bed is around 1.5 meter, length should be of convenient, and space should be maintained between the beds for easy walking around 75 centimeters, and the spacing between the rows of around 30 centimeter. And also between the nuts also we have to maintain the space of around 30 centimeter. And then we have to make sure that the trenches should be prepared. In the trenches only we have to sow the nuts. So there are so many methods are following, depends upon the region. Mainly followed methods are vertical and horizontal. Vertical method is very advantageous because we have to sow the nut in a that way that stalk end should be up. The disadvantage is that for the embryo, the distance between embryo and endosperm will be longer than compared to the horizontal method. Generally, farmers are mostly following the horizontal method, and also this will enhance the quickest germination. So time of sowing is mainly May and June, which is coincidence with the monsoon season. And make sure that while in the nursery, we provide the moisture, maintain the moisture in the nursery. So this is the nursery bed and preparation. And while sowing, we have to make sure that the top portion of the husk should be visible. Here, if you see in the picture, mostly here it is of a horizontal method only they follow. In some areas, to get the quality planting material, they're following in a polybag transplanting method. But here the main disadvantage is that it is a very costliest and also laborious process. Coming to the selection of the seedlings, there are also like mother palm and seedlet, there are certain criteria is there for selection of the seedlings also. Seedling should be of 9 to 10 months old. During 9th month, at least 4 leaves should be opened. And whereas during the month of 10 and 12th month, 6 to 8 leaves should be opened. So while selection of the seedling, we have to take in the consideration like criteria like the highest collar girth around 10 to 12 centimeter and early splitting of the leaves. And also more number of furled leaves. So, and make sure that the seed nuts which doesn't germinate within the 6 months, they should be discarded. So, if you observe the recovery of the seedling nuts, there is around 60 to 65%. Coming to the planting season, monsoon season is the best time for the planting of the seedlings. So, if you have the irrigation facilities, we can plant the seedlings at any time of the year. So, but in the low-lying areas, mainly before or after the monsoon season generally followed. However, from the state to state, the planting season, it will be varied. But most of the time, it is coincidence with the monsoon season, that is June, July, and also again September or October, that is pre and post-monsoon season. And make sure that after planting, the plants are tied with the stake and irrigated properly till the establishment occurs. Coming to the preparation of land and planting of the seedlings. So while preparing the land, make sure that if it is a replanting or planting in a new area, these criteria are taken into the consideration. Again, depends upon the soil also, we have to make the size of the pit. If it is a laterite soils, the size of the pit is larger than compared to the sandy and sandy loam soils. Generally, they will follow the 1 meter into 1 meter into 1 meter. So here during the planting depth also make sure that deeper planting depth is very essential because in the future days it leads to the if we won't follow the deeper depth of the planting, it leads to the uprooting of the plant during the cyclone season. Coming to the spacing, generally follow the spacing is 7.5 into 7.5 meter, but it depends upon the cultivars that may be of tall or dwarf in nature. On the range of 7.5 to 9 meter is generally followed. So if we follow the system of triangular planting system, we can accommodate the number of plants of around 198 with the spacing of 7.6. If we follow the square method, we can accommodate around 170 to 120. That means if we follow the 7.6, around 170 plants. If we follow the 9 meters, around 120 plants. So in the contour areas, we will follow the single hedge and double hedge method of planting. We can accommodate the more plants around 220 to 280 in number. So this is the method of planting. So after planting, make sure that young plantation management is necessary. Immediately after planting, which I mentioned earlier, that staking is essential for better support of the plant. And then initial 3 to 4 years is very essential if it will giving the future better productivity of the plant. So if it is necessary, fencing can be provided around the plant to protection against the cattle and also against the sun. And also regular irrigation is important, especially in the basin areas, weeding should be provided and mulching can be provided with the organic material to prevent the emergence of the weeds. And also, if it is any mortality occurs in the plants, the gap filling can be completed within the first year itself. So, and also because of it is a longer duration crop, so the regular manuring and fertilizer application, which will start from the first year itself only. And especially they require more nitrogen and phosphorus because phosphorus helps in a better root establishment and nitrogen helps in the more production of the leaves. So coming to the manures and fertilizers, so manures and fertilizers applied in a basin way, which is of around 25 to 50 centimeter distance from the trunk. The application will be like, first we have to do the, first we have to make sure that basin should be weed free, and then we have to apply the fertilizers, and then we have to forking or digging can be done to increase the fertilizer penetration into the soil. So mostly like this basin area can be increased with the age of the pump. So initially around 1 meter zone, later it will gradually increase it to up to 2 meters. Okay. Then coming to the fertilizer dose application, first and second, from the first and second year to the sixth year onwards, gradually it is like a 4 times to the first year application. So in addition to the above mentioned dose of the fertilizers, Along with the primary nutrients, we have to apply the secondary nutrients also, like magnesium sulfate. We have to additionally apply around 500 grams. So mostly these doses can be applied in a split application with the followed by monsoon season. One is in June, July, and second one is in November, December. Especially this is followed under irrigated conditions. So if you observe the difference between the rain-fed and irrigated conditions, so comparatively, rain-fed doses only we have to apply the fertilizers in May, June, and October to November. Whereas in irrigated conditions, we have to increase the number of splits. So along with this, if it is a drought months, we have to apply the more organic form, that is around FIM at the rate of around 50 to 20 kg per palm per year, which is mostly applied from the second year onwards. So coming to the irrigation, coconut is mostly response to the summer irrigation, and also there is an observe that along with the fertilizers, if we apply the irrigation, we can increase the more number of nuts. So in the summer months, around 40 liters per palm per week, which increasing the nut production by 50%. So if you observe that different forms of irrigation, basin irrigation, which will taking the more wastage of the water and the more amount of water is required, around 200 liters per palm. Whereas in irrigation source is a problematic, then we have to install the drip irrigation. But while drip irrigation, we have to provide the per palm around 3 to 4 drippers, and we have to run the drip system for around 1 to 2 hours. So because of drip irrigation, there is an advantage that energy can be saved, labor force can be saved, and also only water can be facilitated to the plant in the root zone only. Thereby, we can reduce the weed production. Coming to the drought management, this drought management is mostly useful in rain-fed areas to conserve the soil moisture and also to reduce the evaporation from the soil. Mostly they're following methods like husk burial and mulching with the organic material. So here the husk burial, like around the basin of the coconut, they're using a coconut husk in the concave shape, but they have to prepare the trenches around the basin or in between the interrow spaces of the coconut. So coming to the mulching, they can use the coir pith or using of the coconut husk or the coconut fronds also can be used as a mulching material. So in some areas where the rain-fed areas where the sun intensity is there, they have to apply the lime solution to the trunk up to the height of 2 to 3 meters. Then coming to the intercropping and mixed cropping, this will be like a helpful in as a drought management, and also it will providing the additional income to the farmer. But while selecting the inter or mixed crop, we have to take the consideration of the canopy size, age of the palm, and spacing of the palms are taken into the consideration. Especially palms in between the age group of 8 to 25 years are not suitable for cultivating any intercrops in between the palms. But if you want to grow the intercrops or mainly leguminous crops like groundnut, horse gram, cowpea can be used. And also not only they are like a intercrops, but they are also like used as a cover crops because they helpful in like nitrogen fixation into the soil, and also they will completely cover the soil and helpful in soil conservation also. Coming to the coconut-based cropping system, because of increased population to meet the demands of population, intercropping and mixed cropping are becoming popular. And also coconut is a long, tall palm because of around 75% of the vertical space and around 25 to 50% of the land space is wasted. To utilize that, intercrops can be grown in between the row spaces of the coconut. So, which I already mentioned that 8 to 25 years are not suitable, but in younger coconut plantations, the height of the palm is very low. So, we can grow the seasonal and also the annual crops like tapioca can be grown in between the interrow spaces for around 3 to 4 years. So, now not only tapioca and other some annual vegetable crops also can be grown. So the advantage of this is that I already mentioned that we can better land utilization and also efficient nutrient and water uses can be done, and it gives the additional income to the farmers, and it is a more of insurance to the farmer because if the crop failure occurs. So there are certain criteria while selection of the intercrop, which are also known as subsidiary crops. They should be of shade tolerant, and they shouldn't have more height, and they have to have the less incidence are less prone to the pests and diseases. And the intercultural operations which are doing for the intercrop, they should not be damaged to the soil structure of the main crop. Should not damage to the soil structure of the main crop, and make sure that the economic lifespan of the intercrop also should not be more than the main crop, that is coconut. So the best examples for the intercrops, like for a vegetable as an annual purpose, we can grow the chilies and French beans. Whereas recently, medicinal and floriculture crops are becoming more popular in between the interrow spaces. If you see the medicinal crops like coleus, sarpagandha, and periwinkle, whereas pulses, red gram, black gram, green gram, and horse gram can be grown. Whereas in fruit crops, low duration fruit crops like banana, papaya, pineapple, sapota, and guava, etc. Whereas tuber crops like elephant foot yam, tapioca, sweet potato can be grown. So along with these crops in a coconut storage cropping system, the popular crop combination is like black pepper, beetle vine, cocoa, clove, nutmeg, cinnamon, diascorea, ginger, turmeric, and for the multi-farming, fodder grass can also be cultivated. So after palms attaining the height of around 5 to 6 meters, the intercropping can be grown. So we have to make sure that the separate management practices can be done for the both for the main crop and also for the intercrop. There is a observation that the high profitable intercrop combination between the coconut is that the black pepper and the cocoa. Coming to the mixed cropping, so mixed cropping is that we have to use the different crop duration crops in the ellis of a perennial, that is coconut. Mainly here shade loving or shade tolerant generally mixed crop. Best examples are like cocoa and some important spice crops like clove, nutmeg, and cinnamon. Black pepper can be trailed over the coconut. Here also, like intercropping, the separate management practices have to be followed. Coming to the mixed farming, which I mentioned earlier, in between the interrow spaces, we have to use the grass fodder or forage grass crops. They will give the cattle as a cattle feeder for the cattle, and also from the cattle we can extract the manure and can be used as an organic manure to the soil. So this mixed farming, this model is generating the additional employment and also giving the insurance to the farmer. Coming to the multi-tier farming, which I mentioned earlier, it is a further step to the intercropping or mixed cropping. Here, depends upon the different heights of the plant. We can consider it as a tiers. So we can use the different crop combination, that is coconut, black pepper, cocoa, pineapple. So if you see the topmost height coconut will be there, then black pepper, which will be trailed over the coconut. Then next tier will be like a cocoa, and finally on the ground cover, pineapple, turmeric, ginger, and low-lying crops can be grown. So the benefits of this crop is that more returns can be obtained. We can use the proper utilization of land and solar radiation, and it will give the more employment, and also helpful in soil erosion decreasing, and also it improves the soil structure and increases the microbial diversity in the soil. Coming to the harvesting, so again depends upon the what purpose we are using the crop. The harvesting stage it will vary. So husk color is the better indicator for the coconut maturity. However, again in different varieties also the color of the coconut it varies. Mostly like if it is mature, the brown color it will attains. But to get the attaining of best quality products, we have to harvest at the right maturity. So I already mentioned that we can expect around 12 bunches per year. So we have to harvest the crop in every month. So they take around 11 to 13 months from flowering to the maturity. So if it is for the copra purpose, we have to check the sound of the meat, that is hollow sound when it is stabbed, and brown coloration of the husk is the correct maturity indices for the copra purpose. However, which I mentioned that for the different ages, we have the different purposes. If it is of tender nuts, we have to harvest the nuts around 6 to 7 months old. Whereas for the green husk, which is of around 10 to 11 months old, then copra and oil, fully matured nut to be taken. If it is for the seed purpose, completely mature 12 months old nut have to be taken. So I already mentioned that for the tender nuts purpose, we have to harvest the monthly. Then whereas for the copra and oil purpose, we have to harvest the nuts at 45 days interval. Again, it depends upon the season. If it is the summer, the interval is less than compared to the rainy season. So on an average, we have to take around 8 to 10 harvests can be taken from the year. So if it is for the seed purpose, we have to take the completely matured seed, ripened seed only we have to take it. So coming to the method of harvesting, so if there are pole and the climbing method. So mostly pole method is generally used. If it is a climbing, they have to use the scythe one at the end of the bamboo pole can be used. It is in a pole method. Whereas climbing method, they have to use the one ladder-like structure for holding to the trunk of the coconut. They have to climb the tree for harvesting. But make sure that while harvesting, there should not be any damage to the nuts. So coming to the yield, we again depends upon the variety, the yield will varies. So for the tall varieties, it is around 60 to 80 nuts, especially it is observed under rain-fed conditions, whereas under irrigated condition, we can expect around 80 to 100 nuts per palm per year. So coming to the post-harvest handling, so here I'm mentioning about only the copra purpose or for the oil extraction. So the fully matured nuts should be have to be taken. And then copra should be dried to the 6% moisture. Generally, they will use the two different methods of drying. One is sun drying or the artificial drying method. So again, after proper drying, the copra can be stored in a polythene lined bags. We can increase the shelf life up to 6 months. Then household, if we store the nuts in a household purpose, then must make sure that we have to position the nut in a vertical only. First, initially for the drying, we have to do the dehusking. So generally in the rural areas or villages of the Andhra Pradesh or India, mostly they will use the iron rod driven, which is a manual we have to do. But to make sure that there should not be any damage to the hand while doing this operation. Now, recently, mechanical devices are also can be used for the dehusking purpose. Recently, they are introduced in the market. So coming to the copra processing, I already mentioned that during the drying, we have to maintain the moisture percentage of 5 to 6 only. There are certain methods are there for drying, sun drying, smoke drying, kiln drying, and indirect hot drying are generally used. But mostly followed methods are sun drying and artificial drying by the solar dryers. So this sun drying is the traditional method. We have to open the coconut into half and we have to dry in an open surface. But disadvantage of this method is that the dirt can be deposited on the surface of the nut. For the drying of this process, it will take around 7 to 8 days. But make sure that the cloudy weather is not suitable for the drying in the sun drying. And also it will reduces the quality of the copra. So that's why solar dryers are introduced. So these are like a closed type of solar dryers. So with this method, we can quality deterioration can be reduced and also drying time also reduced to 3 to 4 days. So there are two methods of copra can be prepared from the drying. One is ball copra and second one is the cup copra. For the ball copra, we have to store the seed nuts in a without after dehusking, without opening the nut. We have to store the seed nuts 10 to 12 months in a closed space. Then after make sure that the rattling sound after drying of the water, the rattling sound will come from the nut. Then neatly open to get the ball copra. So then the kernel will get easily detached from the shell. we can obtain this after rattling sound comes from the bal copra. The best example for the preparation of the bal copra is that Lakadevi micro. Whereas coming to the cup copra is mostly like used in the oil preparation, and also it will enhance the easy drying of the copra. So here we have, after dehusking, we make the nut into two halves. Then in the sun dryer or in the solar dryer, we have to dry the nut. Then copra grading depends upon the market value and also foreign content, and then the moisture percentage. The grades are categorized. The maximum limits for them is of around 10%, less than 10% for the moisture percentage, and the foreign content, foreign matter should be of 2%, and black copra percentage is also only 5%. So coming to the processing, again depends upon the age of the nut. There are certain products are prepared. If it is immature nut, if it is a tender nut, then tender nut water can be extracted from the nut. If it is a mature one, but still the water is present, from that solid endosperm will be hardened. So from that we can extract coconut milk, coconut chips, desiccated coconut, virgin coconut oil, etc. can be prepared. If it is a mature one, after the complete drying of the liquid water inside it, only for the copra or oil extraction can be prepared. So here again depends upon the edible and non-edible products are diversified, which I mentioned earlier, all are like edible ones. If it is a non-edible one, we can prepare from the shell, charcoal can be prepared, and from the husk, we can prepare the coir, and again coir pith also. Coir pith will be like a media, can be used from the coir pith. Okay. Now coming to the physiological disorders. So there are, depends upon the nutrient deficiencies, the certain disorders are observed. One is chrome choking, and the second one is the button shed or Nathan shedding at the immature stages. So this chrome choke mainly observed in Assam and West Bengal, that is eastern parts of India. So the symptoms are like emergence of the shorter leaves, which are fascinated and crinkled leaves. Leaflets show severe tip necrosis and they fail to unfurl. So in many cases, we are having the choked appearance of the frond. So ultimately, because of this, the affected palm will further die. So coming to the control measures, application of the borax at half-yearly intervals, that is around February, March, and September, October, we have to give along with the recommended dose of fertilizers in the basins. So especially it can be controlled if it is recognized in the early stage. Coming to the immature button shedding and also the formation of barren nuts. So these barren nuts are like with or without or sometimes imperfectly developed kernel. So this type of nuts mainly contains the improperly developed kernel, and they are mostly of oblong in shape. The quality of husk is very low. Embryo is absent or may be present at the varied growth stages. So mostly here under these cases, shells are only seen because of no development of the kernel. It leads to the fungal infection and further decay of the kernel and button shedding and also immature nut drop also can be seen. What are the main reasons for this problem? So mainly this is due to the defective fertilization and also sometimes the genetic causes of excessive bearing also the maybe the reason for barren nuts. So sometimes there will, because of boron deficiency, not only the chrome choke, but also the barren nuts also can be found. So this problem not only for the chrome choke and also for the barren nuts and also the immature nut shedding, all these problems can be controlled by applying recommended dose of fertilizers. That is the good agricultural practices have to be followed, and application of the borax. We have to test the soil. If any deficiency is there, we have to apply the borax at around 50 to 100 gram per tree. And then for the fungal attack prevention, we have to spray the Britox, that is around 3 gram per liter of water, 2 to 3 times on the bunch. Then spraying of the growth regulators will helpful in the butter retention and also the better fruit set. Then we have to irrigate the trees very regularly. That means any drought cannot be seen, and then we have to provide the drainage under the flood conditions. So these are the references which are taken into the consideration while collecting the material. Thank you everyone for giving this opportunity.